All of these connected are very dangerous in the way of reducing black political power.
Strong accusations from Mayor Brandon Scott this morning in reaction to proposed legislation that would strip mayoral control of Baltimore's spending board. 11 News Investigates was first to report on this proposal last week.
Yeah, and investigative reporter Tolly Taylor is joining us now. And Tolly, this proposal would actually cut the Board of Estimates down to just 3 from 5, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the mayor would lose his 2 appointees on the board. And so what that would mean is that it would leave the mayor, the city council president, and the comptroller with equal power on the board. Baltimore's powerful Board of Estimates provides oversight for city spending and approves millions of dollars in taxpayer-funded contracts for city services at every meeting. And as 11 News Investigates reported on Friday, Brandon Scott introduced a similar charter amendment when he was city council president back in 2020, saying at the time that the mayor had too much control over the board. But when I asked Mayor Scott about that today, he said that there are influential people in Baltimore County, like the chairman of Sinclair Broadcast Group, that he says are trying to reduce black political power in Baltimore.
But when you look at these efforts by folks who are being funded by folks who don't live in Baltimore, right? Who are not from the city, who are trying to shrink political power in Baltimore, who are trying to attack the way that Baltimore's government is run. And quite frankly, if we're going to be open and honest, that's about who's running it and their ability to control them. We saw that with the primary election. We know that's what these folks are trying to do. We have to talk about those in all of that context.
The comptroller Bill Henry supports Mosby's charter amendment to remove the city solicitor and director of DPW from the board, and he pushed back on the mayor's reasoning.
I wouldn't argue with the mayor over the fact that there are those who probably do wish to reduce the black political power in Baltimore City. But if all 3 of those elected officials are being elected by a predominantly black electorate, I don't see how that would reduce black political power.
Now, Mosby's charter amendment requires city council approval, and if it's not vetoed by the mayor, it would then be up to voters to decide in November's general election. For 11 News Investigates, I'm Tolly Taylor.